So we had some pretty good riding today, guys. Finally kind of graduating to the mid to longer travel bikes towards the end of our testing. The Recluse is an all new bike. They've kind of they've revamped a couple of their old bikes and introduced a couple of new ones. This is our 27.5 mid to longest travel range bike. It has a 150 mil fork up front, 140 millimeters of suspension in the rear, and a full carbon frame, front and rear triangle. This one retails for $7,000. And let's talk a little bit more about the bike and the parts. I've been riding this bike a lot this year because they let me borrow it, and I took it up to Whistler and I've ridden it in a lot of other places, super steep trails in the Whistler Bike Park, and I found it to be incredibly capable descender and pretty good climber at the same time. It's out of all their new bikes, it's definitely my favorite. But I'm interested to see what you guys think about it.
It's interesting. It's a 140 mil rear travel bike, and a lot of the mid travel bikes we've been testing sort of sit in that range, and then all of the longer travel bikes start around 150 and go up from there, right? But it's got this 36 fork on it, which is just a beefy fork, and you get so used to being fed a diet of pikes and 34s and pikes and 34s and pikes and 34s, and then you get on a 36 and you just kind of go, but to your point, I was really surprised how well this bike climbed. I thought it behaved very well going uphill. It didn't matter how hard you want to smash it into things to kind of like make it up some of those little rocky faces. It was a really, really nice pedaling bike and tractable, and it didn't break loose. It behaved itself nicely. It took a little bit of adjusting to because it is different. It's different.
Yeah, it doesn't look like, I mean, it's got a 66 degree head angle, 75 degree seat angle, and
which is part of why it climbs so well.
I think that's my theory anyway. But when you look at the bike, it looks like a burly bike. Like I look at it, I'm like, that's a park bike. How is that thing going to climb very well?
It is, but it isn't. Because I look at it and I go, it looks sort of like a trail bike.
Yeah.
That's how I was leaning, like visually, and then I agreed. Like in the saddle, it's pedaled very, very efficiently uphill. Get on the pedals, it accelerates quickly. This one, I was having a hard time figuring out who it's for. And I mean, they have bikes that are a little bit longer in travel, a little bit shorter in travel, and it accelerated and climbed really well. It didn't blow me away in the descending as much as it did in the climbing. One thing I didn't experience, which I have over the years with other VPP bikes, is, I didn't have a ton of like pedal feedback, or sometimes you feel like you can ride with the rear brake on, just dragging and rubbing a little bit on VPP bikes. This, I just motored up the climbs with.
Yeah, I thought this was really nice. Like there was very little pedal kickback, pedal feedback, if you will. You could just smash into things while pedaling and keep turning the pedals through it, and it was really fun to get up stuff, and it accelerated really nicely.
The two qualities that I really experienced the most when riding this were the efficient acceleration, and then under pedaling, and then the precise handling. I really felt like it was agile and I could maneuver really quickly. The only thing I noticed at high speeds on rough stuff, it felt a little bit twitchy, but perhaps that's something with how the frame's designed, or the frame geometry.
Well, it's got pretty short stays, doesn't it?
Oh, it's got really short stays. 16 and a half inches on this little puppy. That is the shortest chainstay bike we got here.
Out of all 35 bikes.
Yeah, by at least a quarter inch, which you're getting down to splitting hair numbers, but that's tucked in there. Like it makes it really easy to pull the front up, even with that steep seat angle, and that probably may also contribute a little bit to how it could get nervous when you start going to warp speed, in spite of a nice rangy wheelbase and a pretty long front center.
What did you guys think about for $7,000 for this pro build? What did you think about the part spec at that price range? At
that price, you're kind of in that borderline of some dark areas, right? Like you're spending $7,000 on a bike, and these days you kind of would like it if maybe you could get some carbon rims for that too. Yeah. And this has alloy rims on it.
So those are some pretty sweet rims though. Those Mavic
XA Elites.
Yeah.
XA Elite wheels.
Well, they have on Intense's on their elite build of this Recluse, they have their all new Intense carbon rims. They've got a 30 millimeter internal rim width. And I've really enjoyed those because I can run a little bit lower pressures than we could run on this bike.
And that bumps the price up. You're up at like
to
79.
7,900. Everything else is pretty much identical. It's a Guide RS brakes, the X01 drivetrain with a E13 11-speed cassette. Which I don't know if you guys, and a Race Face Next cranks.
That E13 cassette is rad. It's got a 9-tooth bottom cog, 44-tooth big cog. Really broadens the range of what you can do, especially at your top end if you're running like a 32-tooth chainring. And a lot of bikes don't really have room to run more than 32-tooth these days. So if you're limited by chainring size, that's a cool touch.
Yeah, I mean, this bike was super efficient, extremely agile, and it's a super fun bike to ride.
Yeah, it's definitely my favorite in all of Intense's line of bikes. It's definitely my favorite bike, and it's probably one of my top 6 or 7 bikes that are out there right now.
I really liked it. It's a chunk of coin, but everything kind of is with that kind of spec. I liked it though. It's a good bike.
Okay. So there you have it.